Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to the conference delegates and all viewers. First and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to Melta for giving me the chance to share my research paper through this platform. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Nurmadiha Akishin Muhammad Fazli, a novice teacher from SK Bandar Penawar 2, Kota Tinggi, Johor. Today, I am going to present on teacher readiness in conducting classroom-based assessment among Level 1 primary school students. This paper presentation is under Track 3, which is Assessment and Evaluation. Next, for the background of the study, when this research was held back in 2019, the practice of CBA, classroom-based assessment or pentaksiran bilik darjah, was announced by the former Chief Education during that time, which is who is Datuk Dr. Amin Senin, in November 2018, and it was also announced that the practice of CBA were going to replace the formal examination or exam-oriented system for Level 1 primary school students. In CBA, teacher has the full authority to assess students' performance and development throughout the learning session. There are 5 main ASINs in CBA, as we can see here, and CBA is actually one of the components in school-based assessment, but this time it became the prime assessment to identify pupils' development and performance throughout the year. The idea of conducting this study popped out prior to the past research done by Stigins 2015, Arisa Tambi and Ruslan 2017, saying that in implementing a newly introduced assessment format, teacher readiness in terms of knowledge in assessing, ways of implementation and integrity are significant to ensure that the changes gives positive impact. So as this assessment format is quite new to the teachers or all the stakeholders in the education field, therefore this was how the study was produced or how the idea of the study came out. For the problem statement, these are the 3 issues raised or discovered based on my findings from the past research. Therefore, the present study is to fill up the gap in the research field in which it emphasizes on teacher readiness in conducting English language classroom-based assessment among Level 1 primary students of one of the selected schools in Kuala Nerus district for the study. The slide shows the compilation of purpose, objectives, and research questions, and the highlighted parts or the highlighted points for the objectives are the main things being studied in this research. The conceptual framework produced in this research is to find out the significant elements and characteristics that became the basis of the research. Which is teacher readiness in conducting classroom-based assessment. Like what is the significant elements about readiness that we can find out from the study. So these are the bases that I found for this research. And this conceptual framework is the result of a combination of Wallace model in 1991 and theory produced from the past research of teacher readiness in the school-based assessment practice by Abdul Said and Shanti 2017. So this model and theory as shown in this figure will be the basis to this research. Okay, so now for the research design, population and sample, I combine all those 3 in this one table. So for the research design, this study employed a case study design. So as you know, for case study, we only choose one sample or one or 2 sample, and we go specific and go into depth on that specific sample. So I can't say that the findings of this study will be like generalization for all teachers, like they are doing the same things. No, because we only go for that one sample. So it is not fair to generalize that all teachers are doing the same. Okay, for the population, it consisted of 4 teachers in a selected school for the study that teach English level 1 primary school students. And out of that 4 teachers, I only choose one an English teacher that teaches year 1 pupils at the selected school for the study purpose as a sample for my study. So next, for instruments and data collection, the instruments I use are the document analysis form, observation, checklist of field notes, and interview protocol. So these are the data that being collected during actually this study was held during my last practicum in IPG. So it was done in 2019, and I took around 6 months to actually conduct this study. This is how the data were being analyzed, the procedure, whereby the first one, the qualitative data garnered from document analysis, observation, and interview were analyzed through thematic analysis. For the reliability and validity of the research, aspect verification and triangulation of the qualitative data, as mentioned earlier, were implemented. For the triangulation of data process, I've come out with the thematic analysis and discovered that there are 3 themes from the data collection garnered in the study, which is number 1, the theme is implementation of CBA elements in teaching and learning process. We have the sub-themes. There are 5 sub-themes as you can see here, and theme 2, the second theme is teachers' knowledge in conducting classroom-based assessment, and the third theme is the teacher's integrity in conducting classroom-based assessment. Okay, next we move to the findings and discussion. This finding is categorized under the first theme, which is the implementation of CBA elements in teaching and learning process. Okay, there are 5 CBA elements or the sub-themes, but I choose to explain only 2 sub-themes, which are content and learning standard-based assessment and documentation and reporting of CBA. So the findings or the first theme here is answering the RQ1, which is the research question 1, whether are the elements of CBA implemented in teachers' English lesson compatible to the MOE standards. So we move directly to the findings here. The interview analysis transcription, the observation field notes, and also the observation data for 30 days. Okay, if I can simplify here from the interview analysis, the sample or the participant said that it is hard to prepare instrument for the assessment that was in line or parallel to the content and learning standard in the CFR scheme of work. And as we can see from the observation field notes, supposedly the content standard is 2.1, communicate simple information intelligibly, and learning standard is 2.1.3, express basic likes and dislikes. However, the assessment or the instrument carried out for the CBA pupils were asked to draw emoji on things they like and dislike in their workbook, and there is no speaking activity conducted. Okay, for your information, 2.1 and 2.1.3 is actually the content and learning standard for the speaking skills. Okay, therefore, the assessment carried out was not related to the content and learning standard. And from the observation data, it is discovered that only 9 out of 30 days of the assessment conducted was based on the content and learning standard in the scheme of work for CFR Year 1. Okay, supposedly, the instruments or the assessment used should be compatible to this scheme of work. And however, from the findings, okay, the participant did formative assessment, but most of the assessment implemented were not parallel to the content and learning standard. Only few lessons managed to abide the standard produced by the MOE. And if we go for the past research, it's also the things that happen. As we can see from Siti Hauzimah 2019, from her findings, from her past, from the research that she done, most teachers are unable to plan the lesson according to the content and learning standard, especially when it comes to the assessment. Alright, so next sub-themes, the second sub-themes, which is documentation and reporting of CBA. So still the same research question, answering the first research questions. Are the elements of CBA implemented in teacher English lesson compatible to the MOE standard? Okay, now I have the three data from the interview, observation, and observation data. And from these findings, we can summarize that the formative assessment report is not recorded properly. Okay, as we know, for CBA, we have the Borang Transit PBD, and I think all teachers know about this. So usually for the Borang Transit PBD, we record the formative assessment done by each lessons or throughout the lessons that we did throughout the year. Whereby for the summative assessment, we record it during the mid-year and the final year assessment. Okay, now for this sample from the participant, for the summative assessment, she did the summative record. However, for the formative assessment, it is not prepared in terms of marks, observation, checklist, or portfolio. And the participant also did not collect and mark a pupil's workbook and exercise book. So throughout the 30 days observation, the participant did 22 times of formative assessment. Okay, she did the assessment, however, it wasn't properly documented and recorded. Supposedly under CBA, every assessment that we did to the students formatively and especially summatively, it should be recorded and documented in the Borang Transit PBD. So from the past research also, it has been proven that this issue is also, it is not a new issue. It also happened from the research produced by Hamimah and Rohaya 2017 for the research of cabaran pendaksiran berasaskan sekolah, dilema guru. Teachers having insufficient time to do the documentation and recording of pupils' assessment, since pupils' enrollment in each classes is not small and each teacher has to teach more than one classes at a time. So maybe it is quite troublesome to document everything for each single classes, for each formative assessment that we did to the students. Okay, next is the second theme of the finding, which is teacher knowledge in conducting classroom-based assessment. It answered the research question 2, how the knowledge garnered by the teacher from the authority gives impact to the implementation of classroom-based assessment. So here, from the data collection, we have from the data analysis, we have interview analysis transcription with the teacher. You can see here. Okay, I highlighted the important things in red and the document analysis field notes from these three main documents gained by the participant for applying the CBA in her lesson. So as we can see from the interview analysis, as I can summarize here, the guideline given does not display a clear way to prepare instruments in assessing English language skills, whereby the guideline given is quite general and it wasn't detailed based on the subject. Same goes to the documents here from the Surat Siaran, Panduan BBD. Okay, all those input and document, it only emphasized on the practice of CBA in general, and it was not subject based. Meaning that they are not guided or trained, the participant is not guided or trained to do the assessment, to do the instrument based on English language, because as we know English, we have the 4 skills, and if you're not trained properly, it might be quite difficult to actually to produce instruments or assessment that is directly or abiding the standard in the CFR scheme of work. Okay. From the findings, the participant had the knowledge or exposure in assessing for CBA. However, yes, it is not specifically emphasizing on the English subject. Therefore, it gives slightly negative impact to the implementation process. And this is also proved by the research done from Haize and Lorasma 2019, isu dan permasalahan pentaksiran alternatif dalam sistem penilaian di Malaysia, whereby a research also displayed that almost half of teachers that involved in their study never gain proper training or specific exposure based on their subject. They have to learn themselves to do the assessment, and they only practice the classroom-based assessment from their colleagues' input. For the last theme of this finding, which is the aspect of integrity implemented in the practice of English language CBA. Okay, here we have the data from these 3 data collection method. So what I can summarize here, the aspect of integrity is not highly integrated in the summative assessment and in the process of deciding mastery level as being underlined by the MOE. So the formative assessment is not formally implemented as what it should be practiced according to the language skills, like we have speaking, writing, listening, and reading. And the TP given also based on the general observation in the class, like what have been said in the interview analysis. And as you can see from the observation field notes, I found out that there was no moderation process held to decide students' mastery level. They only did the informal conversation and to decide the mastery level for each student. And students' works are not checked and marked, this making students' assessment record unavailable. So here we can see that the aspect of integrity is not highly integrated, and it's also proved by the past research from Abdul Said and Shanti, whereby the degree of teacher integrity is low in conducting SBA as they did not properly assess pupils' performance before keying the bands in the system. Okay, next one for the implication of the study. So basically this is how the study give impact to the teacher as the implementer group, especially the participant, and me myself as the researcher. It improved the knowledge and skill in conducting classroom-based assessment, especially on the subject taught. So for me, each subject has its own way and teaching or technique of assessing. Like English, we have listening, reading, speaking, writing. So it needs different type of techniques to do the assessment methods or the instruments. Therefore, the teaching and learning activities of these skills need to be properly planned so that the teacher can directly use the activities, the learning activities as medium to assess pupils' performance. Okay, next, the learning activities and instruments prepared for the assessment need to adhere to the provided CFR scheme of work. And actually for CFR scheme of work, we as teachers, we have been provided by the MOE. So in the CFR scheme of work, the suggested learning activities and instrument actually can be applied So we just have to adapt it according to our pupils' level. So it is easier for us to do the assessment for CBA. We can only just take from the CFR scheme of work, but we have to adapt it to our pupils' levels of performance. And next one, more effort on fully implementation of CBA elements throughout the process of teaching and learning. So as for myself, when I see it, because when I did this study, it was when I was a student, so now I'm a teacher. For me, I think it is actually the usual practice in teaching and learning for the classroom-based assessment. It's just that everything should be recorded and documented as what has been written or embedded in the panduan pelajaran bilik darjah, because I think from A to Z is the usual process. Like we went to the class, we prepared the teaching and learning materials, we assess the students, because usually before we finish our teaching, we will give exercise or practice or quiz or games to the students. So all of that is actually classroom-based assessment, whereby we assess students formatively and also summatively. And last one, integration of fun learning, student-centeredness approach, and PAK 21. I think it's able to vary the assessment method for CBA, because various methods of assessment is actually one of the elements in classroom-based assessment, so that students are not focused in only one type of assessment, like paper and pencil, just like that. So we can use games, we can use role play, and other types of assessment like integration of fun learning and all, to do to assess the students. Okay, last but not least, these are the recommendation from the findings of the study to empowering the practice of PLC among teachers. Subject-based classroom-based assessment workshop can be held, and teachers also can actively involve in any webinar, seminar or conference, and teachers online community in social media to gain the ideas on how to conduct classroom-based assessment, especially on the subject that we teach at school. So I think that is all from me, from my sharing on my research. And thank you for lending me your ears throughout this presentation. So that's all from me. Thank you.